Asterisk, the wind had the sound of something unfinished, like a prayer half-spoken or a name whispered before sleep. It swept across the Montana plains with a fury that bent trees like old men leaning into grief. Snow had begun to fall again, thick and wet, sticking to the backs of horses and eyebrows and wagon wheels that hadn't been greased in too long. Asterisk A. Single wagon rattled through that frozen emptiness, pulled by a mare that looked as tired as the man at her reins. Asterisk Sam Carraway hunched over the driver's bench, hat low, jaw tight, hands worn raw by rains and years. The canvas above him flapped, patched so many times it looked like a quilt made of old regrets. Inside, 3 children huddled under wool and silence, one nearly grown. 2 still caught somewhere between childhood and whatever came next. Asterisk Ruth, the oldest at 16, had her mother's eyes and her father's stillness. She watched the snow through a hole in the wagon side, silent. Wes, 12, fiddled with the broken clasp on his satchel, and Mika, barely 11, held a slingshot tight in his hand like it was a weapon worth something in a world like this. Asterisk. No one spoke. Asterisk. They'd been on the trail since dawn, and the road had long since disappeared under the ice. Sam hadn't said much when they left, just told Ruth to pack bread and jerky, and for the boys to layer their socks. He said they were going to see a doctor. What he didn't say was that he'd been coughing up blood for 3 weeks. That, when he pressed his fingers under his ribs, something hard and wrong pulsed there like a second heart. Asterisk, he'd hidden it for years. 12, to be exact. Asterisk, 12 years ago, Annie died birthing Micah. 12 years ago. He felt the first tightness in his chest, just a stitch, a pressure, easy to ignore when there were mouths to feed and fences to mend. Asterisk, 12 years later, it had grown into something else. Something that woke him in the night, cold and soaked, heart pounding like a drumbeat at a funeral. The sky darkened early that day. They'd passed the burned shell of Shepherd's Hollow just after noon. Chimneys without houses. Fences around? Nothing. A crossbeam blackened by fire still held a rusted sign that flapped in the wind like a warning. Keep going. Asterisk Sam didn't slow. Didn't look. Asterisk, he knew what happened there. Everyone did. Bandits had raided 2 winters back, took food, took horses, took lives. The town never came back. As they rolled past, Ruth finally broke the silence. Why now? Asterisk her. Voice was soft but steady. Asterisk Sam didn't answer. His knuckles whitened on the reins. Asterisk Papa? Still, he didn't speak. Behind him, Wes looked up from his satchel. You been coughing real bad, Pa. Micah said nothing, just tightened his grip on the slingshot and stared at the horizon like it owed him something. Sam cleared his throat. Asterisk, just a checkup, he said finally. Dr. McAllister's passing through Plainsmouth. Figured I'd see him while I still can. Asterisk, he didn't mention the dizzy spells. The fact that he'd collapsed face first in the field 2 days earlier and come to with the taste of blood in his mouth and the sky spinning like a wheel. That night they made camp under the bare limbs of a dead elm. Sam moved slower than usual, like the cold had seeped deeper than it should have. Asterisk Wes offered to gather wood, and Ruth took over boiling water from the snowmelt. Micah laid out the blankets inside the wagon with his usual perfection corners. Tight, edges tucked. Sam had raised them all on routines like that. Discipline, order. It was the only way to survive on land that didn't care if you lived or died. Asterisk as night fell. Ruth lit a lantern and held it near Sam's face. His skin looked thinner than she remembered. The beard didn't cover how gaunt he'd gotten. The lantern light made his eyes look sunken, hollow. You're worse than you're saying, she said. Sam didn't argue. Just nodded once, slow. Asterisk, the fire cracked. Asterisk far off, a coyote howled. Then silence. Asterisk Ruth swallowed. Is it bad? Asterisk Sam took a long time to answer. Then, it ain't good. Asterisk, that was all he said. And it was all she needed. Sometime after midnight a noise woke them. Asterisk not. Wolves. Not wind. Asterisk a kind of sharpness in the air. Like the ground itself was holding its breath. Asterisk Sam sat up too fast. Pain lanced through his side like a knife. He bit down on the groan. Reach for the rifle. The children stirred. Asterisk, then it passed. Nothing came from the trees, no footsteps, no glint of steel, but something was changing. Snow had started again. Thicker this time, and Sam couldn't shake the feeling that time itself was thinning out. Like if he breathed wrong, the wind would carry him away at dawn. The coughing came hard. Asterisk, he doubled over beside the wagon, hand to his chest. Blood hit the snow like ink on paper. Asterisk, he looked up. Ruth had seen. So had Wes. Micah pretended not to. Sam wiped his mouth. Stood like nothing happened. Asterisk, break camp, he said. We ride. They didn't make it far. Asterisk, by midday the trail curved along a frozen ravine. The snow made it hard to see, and the wagon wheel caught on a hidden root. The whole thing tipped. The horse reared. The axle groaned. Asterisk, and in a blink, Sam was under it, pinned by the ribs. Pain exploded in his side like fire. He heard Ruth scream his name. Everything after that blurred, faces above him. The groaning of the horse. The creak of the wagon still, half upright. The pressure in his chest doubled. Asterisk, the children tried lifting the wagon. It didn't budge. Asterisk, Micah scraped his hands raw, trying to dig under him. Ruth sobbed. Wes swore for the first time in his life. Then a voice cut through the wind. Step back. Ruth turned. A figure moved out of the tree line, wrapped in a gray duster. Rifle across her back, a face half covered by a scarf. Snow clung to her shoulders. She moved like she wasn't afraid of anything, not death, not pain, not the sight of children crying over a dying man. She didn't introduce herself. She dropped her pack. Wedged a branch under the wagon frame, heaved. Asterisk, the wagon shifted. Sam cried out. Again she heaved. This time it lifted. Just enough for Ruth and Wes to drag Sam free. He gasped, air sawing through his throat like glass. Asterisk, the stranger stood over him, pulled back the scarf. Asterisk, she was maybe 30. Scar down her left cheek. Hair cut short. Eyes dark and unreadable. Asterisk, you're bleeding inside, she said. And out, Sam tried to nod. Don't move, she added. Or die faster. Then she got to work. Asterisk, she built a fire, fast, efficient, taught Ruth how to melt snow in small batches. Taught Wes how to splint his father's ribs. Used a needle thick as a nail to stitch the open gash where the branch had torn flesh. Asterisk, when she peeled back his shirt to clean the wound, she stopped. Asterisk said nothing. But the change in her face said everything. She saw it, the tumor, purple-black, swollen against the ribs. Unnatural, like death had been growing there for a decade and finally decided to show its face. But she said nothing. Sam met her eyes, and something passed between them, a knowing. She'd seen this before, maybe in soldiers, maybe in herself. Asterisk, she wrapped him tight, fed him broth in slow spoonfuls, sat beside him in silence while the children slept, curled together like wolves. Asterisk, thank you, Sam croaked. She didn't answer, just tossed another log on the fire. The sparks danced into the sky. Later, under cover of dark, Micah opened his father's saddlebag, searching for jerky. Asterisk. What he found instead was paper, folded, yellowed, a letter, a will, asterisk, signed, dated, addressed to Ruth, Wes, and Micah. Asterisk, he read it twice, then handed it to Ruth. She read it too. It wasn't long. Just a few lines in Sam's rough hand. Asterisk, greater than if you're reading this, then I didn't make it. I'm sorry. I did my best. Asterisk, I didn't tell you because I couldn't leave you until I had to. Asterisk, don't remember me sick. Remember me working. Asterisk, your father. Always. Asterisk, Ruth stared at the words like they were a language she'd never learned to read. Wes looked at his sister. He's known this whole time? Ruth nodded. Micah wiped his nose on his sleeve. Asterisk, outside. The fire cracked again. Asterisk, and Sam, breathing slow, turned his face toward the sound of his children reading goodbye before he was gone. Asterisk. Dawn rose gray and hollow. Asterisk, the fire had long since died, leaving only coals buried under a crust of snow. A faint wind stirred the ashes. Ruth sat awake beside her father, a blanket draped across his shoulders, watching the trees. Her fingers, trembled, but her face held no fear, only the long, silent ache of someone who had read her father's goodbye while he still breathed. Wes stirred under the wagon, arm thrown over Micah like a shield. The boy was still clutching the letter, crumpled in his fist, even in sleep. The stranger stood at the edge of the camp, watching the tree line. She hadn't slept. Not once. Ruth rose slowly, careful not to wake the others. "Will he make it?" she asked quietly, voice hoarse from cold and grief. The woman didn't turn. "He shouldn't have lasted this long." Ruth's eyes filled. She blinked it. But he did. The woman nodded once. "He's either too stubborn, or there's something left he ain't done." Ruth looked at her. "What's your name?" The woman glanced sideways slow, then shrugged. "Ilara." No last. Name, no town. No home, just a face carved by loss and a coat that still smelled faintly of blood and gunpowder. They stayed the morning in that hollow, letting Sam sleep. Ilara caught a snow grouse before the sun fully broke the trees and gutted it without a word, her hands quick, her knife clean. She handed the meat to Ruth, who roasted it slowly with shaking hands. Sam stirred only once, coughed up something black and fell back into half-sleep. His skin was pale, lips cracked. Every breath came harder. Ilara leaned over him, placed 2 fingers to his throat. "He's fading," she said. "You've got hours, maybe." "Then we ride," Ruth said, standing. Ilara looked at the broken wagon axle. No wagon. "We'll carry him." She studied Ruth. The girl didn't flinch. "Didn't break?" Ilara, Wes said quietly, from behind. "Where did you come from?" Ilara's mouth twitched, not quite a smile. "War, and after that nowhere." Wes didn't ask again. They rigged a travois out of branches and canvas and tied it behind the mare. Sam was strapped down gently, blanket wrapped tight, his face sunken and half-lit by the morning. The children packed light, just the rifle, the canteen, and the rest of the jerky. Everything else was abandoned to the wind. They set out east. Plainsmouth was 2 days away by wagon. On foot, with snow falling and a half-dead man in tow, it could be 4. They didn't have 4. The first night was worse than the last. Wolves howled in the dark. The fire wouldn't light, and the cold gnawed at their joints like it had teeth. Ilara sat across the flames, carving notches into a piece of bone. Micah stared at her, silent. Was it bad? He asked. "The war?" She didn't look up. "Yes." Did. "You save anyone?" No. Silence stretched between them. Finally, Micah whispered, "Are you gonna let Papa die?" That made her look up. Her eyes weren't hard, just old. Like whatever soul was behind them had seen too many winters. I've stitched 100 men, held their guts in my hands, watched their last thoughts spill out through the hole in their sides. She leaned forward, lowering her voice. "Some of them didn't want saving. Others weren't done yet." "Which is he?" Ilara studied the fire. "I don't know." The next morning, Sam woke briefly. The children surrounded him. "Like pilgrims, Pa?" He blinked. His hand reached weakly for Ruth's. "I saw your ma." Ruth's throat caught. "No, Pa, it's me." "Ruth." He shook his head, barely moving. She was smiling. "Saad said the children are good. Said ... A single tear slid down the edge of his face, then he closed his eyes again. The trail grew harder. The snow turned to sleet. And then rain. They crossed a stream that nearly swept Micah off his feet. Wes pulled him back, teeth chattering, and slapped his brother on the shoulder without a word. The boys hadn't fought once since reading the letter. Hadn't argued. Not even over who'd carry the rifle. It was as if they'd aged a year with every mile. By the time night fell again, they were walking ghosts. They made camp beside a blackened stump. Sam hadn't spoken in hours. Ruth sat beside him, humming a song her mother used to sing, barely a whisper of melody. Wes slept with one eye open, the rifle across his chest. Micah lay beside Ilara, curled like a pup, his eyes wide. Asterisk, why are you still here? He asked. Ilara didn't answer for a long time. Then she said, You ever see a man hang? Asterisk, Micah stiffened. No, asterisk, I did. When I was younger than you. She reached into her coat, pulled out a silver medallion worn bent. This was his. My father's. They said he stole horses. But he didn't, he just owed the wrong people and couldn't pay. Asterisk, Micah looked at the medallion. Why do you carry it? Asterisk, to remember. That sometimes the world doesn't care what you meant, just what it can take from you. She looked toward Sam. He reminds me of someone. Asterisk, who? She didn't answer. Asterisk, the next day. It happened. A shout in the distance. Hooves, the echo of metal. They'd been followed. Asterisk, Ilara grabbed the rifle from West before he could blink. Asterisk, raiders, she said. 3 at least, maybe 4. Asterisk, how? Ruth asked. Asterisk, tracks. Saw them yesterday. Thought we lost them. We didn't. Asterisk, they moved fast, dragging the travois into a grove of scrub pines. Ilara gave the rifle to Ruth, drew 2 pistols from beneath her coat, checked the chambers. Loaded quiet, eyes sharp. Sam barely stirred. Don't let him die here, Ruth whispered. Ilara nodded. Then they came. Asterisk, 3 riders, bandanas, shotguns, one with a face tattooed in red lines. Asterisk, they didn't expect a woman to shoot first. Ilara stepped from the trees and fired once. The lead horse bucked. The rider hit the snow. Asterisk, the others fired wildly. Wes pulled Micah to the ground. Ruth held the rifle like she'd been born for it, aimed, fired, and missed. The kick sent her staggering. Ilara rolled behind a stump, fired again. Second man. Down. Asterisk, a third turned to run. Ilara didn't shoot. Let him go, then silence. Just steam rising from the snow. Blood melting its way into the earth. Asterisk, Wes stared at the bodies. One had a knife still clutched in his hand. Asterisk, are they dead? Asterisk, close enough. Asterisk, no glory. No celebration, just survival. Sam woke that night, eyes open, breathing shallow. Ilara, he croaked. She came to him, crouched low. Asterisk, wide. You help us? Ilara looked at the sky, then down at him. Asterisk, I don't know. He gave a dry laugh. Feels ready gone. Asterisk, you're not. Not yet. He studied her face. Don't let my kids forget who they are. They're stronger than they know. Asterisk, I see that. Asterisk, promise me. Asterisk, I do. His hand found hers. Tell Ruth she's got her mother's fire. And Wes. Tell him I'm proud. Micah. He paused, voice cracking. Micah's still got dreams. Make sure they don't break. Ilara squeezed his hand. Rest now. But he didn't sleep. He just watched the sky. And when the others drifted off, and the fire burned low, Sam looked up at the stars with tears on his cheeks and the smallest smile breaking through the pain. At dawn, they saw the steeple, Plainsmith. The doctor's camp was set up in the old church windows boarded. Smoke rising from the chimney. Ilara and Ruth dragged Sam through the doors, the doctor gray-bearded. Weary-eyed turned and froze. Asterisk, good God. Sam Carraway? Sam tried to smile. Been a while, Mac. Asterisk, the doctor's eyes dropped to Sam's chest. The tumor was bulging through his skin, now angry, purple, terrible. Asterisk, you've had this... How long? Asterisk, 12 years? The doctor stepped back like he'd seen a ghost. You shouldn't be alive. Asterisk, Sam grinned faintly. Tell that to my kids. They laid him on a table and began. Ilara stepped outside. Her hands were shaking. She hadn't shaken in years. Ruth stood beside her, arms folded tight. Wes sat with Micah on the steps, watching the wind stir dust through the cemetery across the road. Hours passed. The sun crept higher. Then the door creaked. The doctor stepped out, blood on his apron. Eyes red. Asterisk, he's still breathing. Ruth fell to her knees. Ilara closed her eyes. Asterisk, he's not out of it yet, the doctor said. But that man... he survived things no one should. I couldn't take it all, but I bought him time. Asterisk, how much? Ilara asked. Asterisk, months, maybe. He looked at them all. But now, he can say what he needs to say, while he still has breath. Inside, Sam stirred, his eyes open to firelight, to Ruth's hand in his, to Wes watching. To make us sleeping. Nearby, with his head on his arm, to Ilara, in the corner. He smiled. Still here, he whispered. Ruth leaned in. Still here, she answered. The light through the stained glass fell in ribbons across Sam's face. He lay on the cot in the corner of the old church. Breathing like each inhale was an ember he had to coax back to life. Outside, the wind carried dust across the road, lifting it in brief flurries, then letting it fall. Horses snorted nearby. A bell rang once. Then silence. The world was quiet. Ruth sat at his side, holding his hand. Her fingers didn't tremble anymore. She just held him steady, anchored to something deeper than fear. Sam blinked. How long? The doctor stepped forward. Surgery was a success. Partway. We couldn't reach all of it. Sam nodded barely. But you bought time, the doctor added. And in your case? That's a miracle. Time. The word lingered in the air like something too heavy to hold. By the second day, Sam was sitting up. By the third, he was walking slow, leaning hard on Wes and Ruth. He hadn't said much since waking. Didn't need to he just sat with each of them, once with Wes on the church porch, watching the windmill spin lazily. Once with Micah near the well, teaching him how to tie a better knot. Once with Ruth in the back of the sanctuary, laying his palm on her shoulder without saying a word, each moment, simple, but complete, like he was carving his goodbye into time. On the fifth day, the stranger returned. Dust trailed behind her as she rode in on a borrowed mare. Ilara hadn't spoken when she left. No promise of return. Just faded into the trees before sunrise. Now. She was back. And not alone. Behind her rode a man with a federal star on his chest and two others trailing. The sheriff. The air changed. Sam met her eyes as she diSMOUNTD. They followed you? She didn't nod. Didn't deny it either. The sheriff stepped forward, hat in hand, the dust of the trail still clinging to his coat. Caraway. Sam stood slowly. Sheriff. Got word of Bada's. 3 raiders shot through in the eastern woods. One lived long enough to mumble something. Said a woman led the charge. Said there were children. And an outlaw with a rifle. Ilara's hand tightened on her saddle. The sheriff looked past her to Sam. Was it you? Sam's voice came low. No, it was me. Ilara looked at him, startled. I fired the first shot, protected my children. The rest is what it is. The sheriff studied him. Saw the sickness in his face, the weight in his eyes. He nodded slowly. Survival's not a crime. Mr. Caraway, not out here? He turned to Ilara. But there's a warrant with your name. Has been for years. Desertion, harboring fugitives. Smuggling medicine to the Lakota during the war. Ilara stared, unmoved. And if I ride? She asked. The sheriff shrugged. I got 3 deputies, a town full of whispers, and a judge who lost 2 sons at Antietam. I wouldn't recommend it. She nodded once. No fear, no fight. Just finality. Sam stepped between them. Then I ride with her. The sheriff frowned. You're half dead. Sam met his eyes. I don't plan to finish that way. That night they prepared. Ilara would ride south at dawn. The sheriff allowed her one chance to walk the edge, cross the canyon pass before midday. If she made it out, they'd let it be. If not, Sam insisted on going. No one argued. Not Ruth, not the doctor. Not even Ilara. He saddled the mare with shaking hands, Ruth watching quietly as she laced his gloves. You don't have to, Papa. Yes. I do. Why? He looked at her, voice steady. Because dying doesn't mean you stop choosing. And I've made too many silent ones already. They rode at dawn. The sky was pale, golden. Hills bathed in soft light. The trail south bent between stone cliffs and jagged ridges. One way in, one way out. If they didn't pass through before midday, the sheriff would come. Sam rode behind Ilara, teeth clenched against the pain. His body screamed with every bounce, every breath. But he didn't stop. They reached the ridge by late morning, a narrow path. Sharp drop asterisk below. The valley stretched open freedom on the wind. Then a sound. Hooves asterisk Ilara drew her pistol before Sam could call out. 3 riders crested behind them, deputies. The sheriff wasn't far behind. Ilara raised her weapon. Sam reached out, lowered it asterisk wait. The sheriff approached, slowly. This ends here, he said. No more deals. Sam stepped forward. I've buried more friends than I can count, Sheriff. Dug graves with these hands. Held my wife while she bled out beside me. I've watched my children grow up thinking I was unbreakable. He drew a slow breath. I'm not. He pulled up his shirt. The tumor, angry and pulsing, showed beneath his bandage. Asterisk, I've been dying 12 years, Sheriff. But I chose to live like I wasn't. He pointed at Ilara. This woman saved my life, saved my children. She don't deserve a noose. The deputies looked at each other. The sheriff's jaw tightened. Asterisk, I got laws to follow, Caraway. Asterisk, Sam stepped closer. Asterisk, so do I. Asterisk, he reached into his coat, pulled something out, held it in the air. It was his deed, the land, the house. Every corner of his broken, stubborn life, asterisk, I sign it over, he said. To the town, for the widows, for the wounded. He looked up, and I disappear, she disappears. Let the dead bury the dead. Silence. Then the sheriff said, You offering your legacy in exchange for hers? Asterisk, Sam nodded. You want justice? This is mine. The sheriff looked long at him, then at Ilara, then slowly turned his horse. Get gone, he said, before I remember the law. They didn't wait. Ilara spurred her horse. Sam followed. Behind them the sheriff stood like a statue. And, for a long while, nothing moved but the wind. They made it through the pass. Asterisk on the other side. In the shade of a pine grove they stopped. Asterisk, Sam dismounted slow. Sat on a stone, breathing shallow. You didn't have to ride with me, Ilara said quietly. He looked at her. I did. She crouched beside him. You'll never get back, you know. Not without help? He nodded. I wasn't planning. Tio, she frowned. What do you mean? Sam looked out at the horizon. I've been dying too long. Time to stop pretending I ain't, Ilara stared. No, she said. No, not like this. Asterisk, it's all right. Asterisk, he reached into his coat, pulled a letter. Asterisk, give this to Ruth when you get back. Ilara's voice cracked. You're not making me carry another death. He looked at her. You're not. You're carrying something finished. She held his gaze for a long moment, then nodded barely. He died before sunset, peacefully, face turned to the trees, hands folded. When Ilara returned to Plainsmouth 2 days later, the children met her at the gate. She didn't speak, just handed Ruth the letter. Asterisk, Ruth read it alone. In the church, the fire burning low. Greater than my Ruth, my Wes. My make a asterisk, I carried this thing in my chest for 12 winters, but the weight that hurt most wasn't the pain. It was the silence. Asterisk, I didn't want you to grow up seeing me as dying. I wanted you to grow up seeing me as trying, asterisk, trying to build something. Trying to be enough. Trying to carry the storm so it wouldn't touch you, asterisk, but maybe that's not the way. Maybe letting you see me weak would have shown you how strong you already were. Asterisk. You are the best things I ever made. Asterisk, don't bury me with grief. Bury me with what we built together. Asterisk, live loud. Love deep, asterisk, and don't hide your hurt. The world needs to see us healing. Asterisk, your father, still watching. Epilogue. Years passed. Ruth took over the homestead. Wes became a doctor. Micah carved wooden toys for orphaned kids in town and told stories about a man with hands cracked from work and eyes full of love. Asterisk. Ilara disappeared again, some said. They saw her teaching girls to shoot in the canyons of Arizona. Others claimed she died in Mexico saving a child from fire. No one really knew, but sometimes, when wind passed through the hills just right, folks said they heard a voice, soft, gravelly, humming an old tune, and a shadow moving just ahead of the storm. Asterisk.